Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video. My 28 male, wife, 29 female, slept with my best friend's brother a couple months ago, and I just found out. Please be advised that this will be a lengthy article. So I've been married to my wife for a little more than a decade. We met in high school, began dating, and eventually married after college. We are one another's first and only romantic connection. In general, we've had a really good connection. We seldom argue, we still enjoy spending time together, and we are unquestionably great friends. Until lately, marriage had been simple and joyful. She sat me down one evening in November to chat about our life. We've never been very active in the bedroom, but it's never been a major issue. She's always told me that she's not a person, and I've always respected that. It's fantastic when we have. There are no concerns there, but she informed me that night that she lost all passion/desire for me. She was kind about it, but she didn't sugarcoat it. She said that she just does not want it anymore. I assured her that I was aware of her situation. I was wounded, no sure, but I felt that this was a normal occurrence in a relationship that had lasted since high school, especially because none of us has ever had relations with another individual. To some degree, I still believe that. To cut a long story short, we discussed for a couple of hours and decided that this was not good news for our marriage. We didn't make any major choices that night, but we decided to take some time to think and reflect before having another chat in a few weeks. When that time arrived, she informed me that there were several things I needed to work on that would help her regain some desire. It all came down to the fact that I wasn't making her a priority enough, and I hadn't made her feel beautiful, unique, or appealing in a long time, and she was correct. I'll confess it. As a result, I made it my aim to work on it. And everything went off without a hitch. After a few weeks of focused effort, our life rekindled. Actually, it's better than ever. It was incredible. Hooray for forthrightness and self-improvement exclamation then, 2 nights ago, I discovered a slew of text messages that I wasn't meant to view. It was my wife's birthday, and we'd gotten a little tipsy with some friends. She eventually went to bed, and I remained up a little later. When I went to bed, I discovered that my phone had died and that my charger was in another room. I assumed I'd borrow her phone to set my AM alarm since I was too drunk and lazy to go fetch it. I grabbed it, saw that she had received a text from my best friend's brother, who lives a few hours away, and was at a loss for words. We last saw him at my best friend's wedding about 8 months ago, and I remember my wife mentioning that she always thought he was pretty, which wasn't a huge thing at the time. We're always honest about that type of stuff, but I had no clue they texted each other. I assumed it was a happy birthday SMS, but I wasn't certain. I debated whether or not to open it for a few moments. I've never been a snoop, and I'm not fond of the thought of reading her messages, but this seemed strange. Maybe it was the wine, but I had the feeling things wasn't quite right. As a result, I opened it. It was a happy birthday message. To save this narrative from growing much longer, I'll simply say that I discovered a 2-month-old exchange of SMS and photos. The language and images were of an adult nature and rather graphic. I deduced that they met and up in December, when she was in his town visiting an old buddy. They didn't seem to have since then, but they were on a regular basis. I contemplated if I was dreaming for nearly 5 minutes before concluding that I was awake. Enter a new level of agony and nausea that I've never felt before. With my judgment impaired by bourbon, I decided to rouse her up and confront her. She began by denying everything, but she was still extremely inebriated, half sleeping, and not making much sense. When she awoke a little more, she acknowledged to everything, confirmed what I had deduced from the writings. Then she spent some time criticizing me, claiming that my previously acknowledged lack of marital priorities had drove her away. Throughout the chat, I was a screaming jerk, calling her I'm genuinely sorry of my actions that night. But if you've never unintentionally discovered your high school sweetheart turned clear wife's adultery, it stinks. We chatted again yesterday, when we were both sober. It was still a bad talk, but it was a little more polite. She accepted responsibility, apologized sincerely, and told me to do whatever I needed to do. The problem is that I have no notion what I want to do. So, like many others before me, I've come here to seek your counsel. She had to go on a business trip for a few days, which is really very excellent timing since I don't want to be around her right now, and I'm just sitting here wallowing in self-pity and pondering what to do next. I adore this lady with all of my heart, yet I also despise her right now. What would you do is my query to you all. Divorce seems to be a simple solution, but I can't get my head around it just now. People come back after infidelity, don't they? Is she really a nasty person who I need to break away from and focus on restarting my life? I'm not sure. I'm at a loss. This is the worst scenario I've ever been in, which, on the bright side, makes me glad for how simple my life has been, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I apologize if this was too lengthy or unclear at any time. I needed to get things out of my head so I could start thinking about the next steps. All of you are in my thoughts and prayers. Story 2. I, 27 male, found out that my, 26 female, wife cheated on me with my father, 56 male, and got pregnant. My father was a decent man while I was growing up, but my grandmother died when I was approximately 12 years old. He didn't take it well and became a miserable alcoholic, squandering all of his money on liquor and rum. He was dismissed from his job because he would seldom show up for work, and my mother became so fed up with him that she offered him a month to clean up his act or he would be fired. He didn't, and my mother evicted him. I always felt awful for him since he had lost his mother, career and family for him, and I tried phoning him, but he never answered. He hadn't been in my life for 14 years, and I attempted to contact him, but he had probably changed his phone number, so we never met. Fast forward to approximately February of this year, when I get a phone call from an unknown number. It turns out to be my father, and he wants to go to a park and simply chat to me. I agree, and the following day we had a lengthy discussion about everything we'd done over the previous 14 years. I gained some closure, and I remembered how I felt about him before his mother died. He lived in another country and put his life in order so that when he returned, my mother and I wouldn't be so hostile to him. I'm not sure he needed 14 years, but I digress. My mother is with her ailing mother and won't be returning for an unknown period of time, so I gave him a place to stay at my home as long as he could pay for his own utilities. We were trying to save up money to have a kid later on when I returned him. My wife, Sarah, was first averse to the idea, but she relaxed when he explained that he would be paying for what he uses. Their connection was tough at first, but they warmed up to one another, and now that I think about it, there were some warning signs, such as when I asked them what was so amusing, they would say nothing and continue their jokes. I also observed that my wife was becoming less intimate with me, and that if I tried to initiate things, she was in pain, tired, or on her period. Fast forward a few weeks, I worked a double shift and arrived home fatigued, but when I opened the door, my father was balls deep in Sarah. I was very enraged, as if it were the first time I had wished to physically harm a lady. When I turned back, they yelled my name and said they wanted to speak to me, but I ignored them and drove over to my buddy Michael's place. I phoned my job and told her I wouldn't be able to come to work because of a family emergency, and she agreed to let me remain at Michael's place for nearly a week. It was over there that I sobbed uncontrollably. My heart felt like it had been torn from my chest. I despised my father the most since he had abandoned me for 14 years, only to return and seduce my wife. When Michael intervened, I was genuinely considering some risky ideas. After I had a chance to calm down, I returned home to find out what had occurred. Sarah had been ringing my phone, and when she saw me, I could tell she hadn't gotten enough sleep since her eyes were bloodshot. My father emerged from the basement, and I demanded that they tell me when it began, how long it lasted, and why they did it. My father said that it had been going on for a few months because Sarah made him feel youthful again. While he was spewing his nonsense, Sarah was softly weeping, clutching her head and murmuring, "I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me." They dropped a bomb on me when he finished making excuses. Sarah was pregnant, and he was most likely the father. I was seething on the inside and genuinely wanted to destroy them both, but I managed to hold my cool enough to inquire what she planned to do with the child. Sarah wanted to retain the child since our religion, Catholic, frowns on abortion, which made me laugh. So I questioned whether Catholicism frowns on cheating, to which she quietly cried once more. My father said that he wanted her to retain the kid and provide it with an involved father, something he did not do for me. Sarah then brazenly asked if I wanted to assist raise the child, to which I said that she could go herself and that I was seeking a divorce. She begged me not to do it in the name of our faith and that it was terrible for us to do so. But I was so enraged that I informed her that if she came near me, I would most likely beat her. My father urged me to do it for the sake of our rekindled friendship, and I told him to off as well. I'm feeling ill in my stomach. Sarah and my father have been bombing up my phone, pleading for forgiveness and imploring me to rethink everything, but I have placed him on D&D. It hurts so much because the lady I love more than life cheated on me with my father, with whom I just reunited. I'm honestly torn. Does anybody have any suggestions for me in this situation?